Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
We hope you enjoy listening to this podcast of St. Louis on the Air, brought to you by University College at Washington University, with undergraduate and graduate programs part-time, evening, and online. University College at Washington University, offering world-class education within reach.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. Even before the Better Together plan was formally announced yesterday, St. Louis County elected officials were holding up the stop sign. Among their concerns, they reject the notion of a statewide vote to determine this local consolidation. The Municipal League of Metro St. Louis has come up with a counter-proposal, the centerpiece of which is to limit any consolidation vote to just the city and the county. With us to detail that plan is Pat Kelly, Executive Director of Municipal League of Metro St. Louis. Barry Glantz is the Mayor of Creve Coeur. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us.
It's great to be here.
Thank you for having me.
Pat, let's start with you. Give me a broad stroke of your objection to what is being proposed.
Well, I think it's, first of all, it wasn't a stop sign. It's a different approach. Yeah. And the reason being is that the league feels that it's a fundamental right of the residents and voters of St. Louis City and County to determine what form of government they have, not necessarily the voters in Kansas City and Joplin and Springfield.
Would you go for the Better Together proposal if it did not involve the statewide vote?
I would. I'm not saying I'm in favor of their plan. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered under their plan that was released yesterday. It's very vague. It doesn't explain a lot. And I think there's a lot of concerns with that. But ultimately, any plan, I'm in favor of going before the voters of St. Louis City and County.
Mayor Glantz, what's your take?
While I've read the report and there are some positive ideas, and there's a number of very bright minds behind the plan, there's also enormous outstate financial support funding a pretty slick PR campaign. I question why this needs to go to a vote of the entire state. I understand that to change the Missouri Constitution requires that vote. But I'm troubled by that. I think local control means that the city and county can make their own decisions. I'm more so concerned about the consolidation of police departments into one large metro police department.
Why?
The city of Creve Coeur has a CALEA-certified professional police department that's been serving our residents since 1949. We hold ourselves to a very high level of standards. The people of Creve Coeur in 2017 voted a tax increase on ourselves to fund the construction of a new police station that will be completed in the spring of this year. And I think it's important to exercise local control. I don't understand how collapsing all of these well-performing police departments, and there are quite a few, into one larger police department equates to better government and better policing.
You say collapsing. My understanding is that the number of officers would remain the same.
That could be, and again, the numbers are vague, as Mr. Kelly alluded to. Our residents have a personal relationship with the police officers that patrol our streets, and I think that's very important. And we're not the only community that does that. There are so many good things happening in local municipal government, and I use the word collapse. To collapse all of that into one mega government doesn't seem to make sense, especially when it requires us to change the Constitution of the state of Missouri.
But, Pat Kelly, there still is that requirement to have a statewide vote if the Constitution is going to be changed.
Well, That's one way of doing it.
Yeah.
The Constitution, also Article 6 of the Constitution, establishes a process specifically for St. Louis City and County for their residents to decide on the governmental structure that they have and then be voted on by the residents of St. Louis City and County.
That's the freeholders.
And it is a constitutional amendment.
And how does that work? How do the freeholder system work?
So through the initiative petition process, once we collect the signatures and they're certified, at that point the county executive and Mayor of St. Louis have 10 days to appoint their 9 members. The governor then appoints 1. Once that they are appointed, then they're within 30 days, the Board of Freeholders has to hold their first meeting, public meeting. At that point, the Board of Freeholders actually has up to 12 months to develop a plan through public input and then schedule a special election. Can't be within 70 days of a general, before or after a general election. It has to be a special election, and again, for the voters of St. Louis City and County to make the ultimate decision.
We've been down this road before.
We have. Actually, we used it to form MSD. That's how they created MSD back in the 1950s.
And the freeholders were appointed back in the 80s, were they not?
They were, yes.
And nothing came of that.
No, the last proposal that they had never got to the voters. That actually Board of Freeholders was challenged, which is one of the things that people have used to try to cloud this issue. The challenge was really that at that time the president of St. Louis University was appointed to serve. He wasn't a freeholder, he was a registered voter. So that all went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upheld the process and said that the Board of Freeholders could not limit themselves to property owners, that they could be a registered voter as well, or residents of the city and county. So the process is still in place. It's ready to be used, and we hope to implement it.
Mayor, would you concede that some form of consolidation should be taking place in this region?
Absolutely. I think, and I'll be the first to admit and recognize that disparities exist between the municipalities. Collaboration with neighboring communities or creation of standards of excellence can be enacted for all local government entities, not just the municipalities, the school districts, the fire districts. There are a number of entities that the Better Together proposal is not yet addressing. And I think, but overarching, I think we can improve our region, but we can do that locally.
How would you propose that it work? With the city becoming a part of the county, another municipality, or what?
I actually think our municipal structure as it exists makes us a very unique community. I think people identify with the communities that they live in, and I think they like the communities that they live in. One of the reasons that a number of these communities came into existence is because they didn't feel they were getting the proper representation from a larger governmental entity. I believe that government that's closest to the people is the best form of government. And I think, again, collaboration. We collaborate with the cities of Frontenac and Town and Country on our police dispatching services, and it saves our residents hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Pat Kelly, what do you make of the argument, and you hear it a lot, that one of the reasons there's opposition in the county to all of this is because there are so many political fiefdoms out there, and nobody wants to lose what power they might have in their various municipalities?
Well, I think, when people want to use kind of derogatory remarks towards these elected officials, I think it's to me, it's kind of a disservice. Those elected officials are there, and they were put in office by the residents that they serve. And so it's not their fiefdom, it's the residents' fiefdom. And just like the mayor of St. Louis is put in office, is it her fiefdom just because she's there holding that position? The concern, I think, if you look at Better Together's plan and read through it, again, it's very vague, but really it's not a new form of government. They're actually taking the existing St. Louis City government and overlaying that all over St. Louis City and County. And then that government then would control the entire area. I think we should have learned something from the St. Louis City government with too many aldermen. It's very hard to have a consensus when you have that large of a body. L.A., for example, 4 million people in population, and they only have a 15-member council. And yet we're going to, under this proposal, create another huge bureaucracy.
We have the caller in St. Louis wants to get into this discussion. Let's bring in Martin. Martin, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. So I guess my question is that we just heard the Municipal League talk about that, they acknowledge that there is problems, they acknowledge that consolidation is needed, but why haven't they worked to consolidate and kind of achieve these, kind of address these disparities that exist and for reform? Like, what is stopping them from doing it already?
Well, I think in a lot of situations, the League has helped cities consolidate. When Veneta Park and Veneta Terrace wanted to go to their voters, we helped with that process to enable them to do that. There's a couple of other cities right now who are working on that process. And city governments, municipal governments are always looking for opportunities to share services. Over the last few years, a number of cities have combined their dispatching services as technology has changed. Many cities share their park like rec centers and ice rinks and so forth. So they're always looking for those opportunities. A lot of these issues that you heard the county executive and the mayor talk about yesterday and the Better Together representatives were really more the county functions, the health department, the social services, the social programs. Those really aren't the roles of municipal government. That's not to say we don't want to be a part in making them better, but that isn't the typical role of municipal government.
Thank you for the call, Martin. We have a listener in Creve Coeur named Bob has sent us an email saying, other than local politicians and power brokers in all of the cities in the area losing their jobs, it seems to me that the anti-consolidation group does not have a really strong reason as to why they won't go along with this. Can your guest tell me the top 3 reasons the opposition says as to why we should not vote yes for this consolidation? Mayor, do you want to
right off the bat, I think that the vote, if there's a vote on this, should be local and not statewide. Second, I think that collapsing and requiring the municipal police departments to combine into one police department is a non-starter for me and the residents in Creve Coeur. I can only speak for my community. And third, I don't think, overarching, I don't think that bigger government necessarily means better government. I think there are so many communities that are really doing a very good job serving the residents of the communities that they have.
Pat Kelly, do you want to take a crack at those 3 objections? Would they be exactly the same as the mayor's?
Well, again, I think the big one is that there's plenty of examples of big government does not necessarily make big government, but I think it's important that we try to work together as a region opposed to working against one another. That's what's going to make us stronger. The League has felt for a number of years that our biggest concern is the lack of regional leadership. When Amazon was looking to come to the St. Louis region, they weren't coming to the city of Brentwood and saying, here's our proposal we want to build here. They were looking for regional leaders to take that plan to. And yet 2 weeks before that proposal was due at an East-West Gateway meeting, the county executives from our region were arguing about who was going to submit the plan. We need regional leadership if we want to make our region grow. And it's not just St. Louis City and County. It's our entire metropolitan statistical area that's actually slowing growth.
But wouldn't this proposal more sharply define leadership in this community? We have a single entity as opposed to having 88 or 89.
But again, to what end? I mean, we'll have one mayor over this new metropolitan government, but supposedly they're leaving the other mayors in place, right? But really, those entities are then becoming really homeowners associations. They have no real authority to manage and provide the services that their residents want and deserve.
Your thoughts, Mayor?
I believe that people and companies, for that matter, invest when they feel confident. And to me, confidence starts with public safety. One centralized metro city government and one centralized metro city police department is not going to improve crime in St. Louis. It may dilute our statistics, but it doesn't change the underlying problem that continues to plague our region.
Does the idea of consolidating municipal courts, Pat Kelly, have any appeal?
Oh, I think it does, actually. And actually we have a piece of legislation we're working on right now with the legislature that could help do some of that. And cities are looking. I think that 12 of the municipal courts have already consolidated within the last year or so. So I think we all need to look at those opportunities to make those services better for all the residents of St. Louis City and County.
If the idea of the freeholders getting together and working their magic to consolidate and to help the region, I wonder how many items they might cherry pick from the better together proposal.
Again, people have brought up, well, what happens if they all better together board? It becomes a freeholders. Ultimately, if they're able to do that or whatever the plan may be. I think at that point, it's our obligation to let the residents of St. Louis City and County vote on it. We shouldn't be afraid of that.
30 seconds left. Mayor, what's the next step?
To continue to learn, to continue to read, to continue to educate our residents, and to really decide if this is the best way to improve our community. I don't think there's anybody that disagrees that improvement is an opportunity that we would all welcome.
Very quickly, Pat Kelly, what actually is the next step? What do you do now?
Well, we're going to start collecting signatures, a grassroots effort, and we really look forward to having that open and transparent public process to look at the St. Louis region and see how we can make it stronger.
Well, keep us posted on what you're doing.
Appreciate it.
Great to talk to you. That's Pat Kelly, Executive Director of Municipal League of Metro St. Louis, and Mayor Barry Glantz of Creve Coeur. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.